Rex's nose twitched against the sterile air of Terminal 3. The 5-year-old German shepherd moved through the crowded checkpoint, his tan and black coat rippling with each deliberate step. Officer David Martinez kept pace behind him, one hand resting lightly on the leather lead clipped to Rex's tactical harness. Around them, travelers shuffled through security lines, pulling laptops from bags and removing shoes, while TSA agents barked instructions over the constant drone of announcements. But Rex ignored it all. His ears swiveled forward, catching sounds humans couldn't hear. His nostrils flared, processing thousands of scent particles every second. This was his 4th sweep of the morning, and the routine had become as natural as breathing. Check the departure gates, circle the food court, inspect the baggage claim, move to the next terminal. David glanced at his watch. 6:45 a.m. The VIP lounge sweep was next on their route, though he dreaded it. The wealthy passengers who frequented those exclusive spaces rarely appreciated a working dog nosing around their expensive luggage. Last month, a businessman in a $3,000 suit had complained to airport management about Rex getting too close to his designer briefcase. David had spent an hour filling out paperwork. Rex stopped abruptly near Gate 22. David tensed. After 3 years working together, he'd learned to read every shift in Rex's body language. The dog's tail had dropped, his head lowered slightly, nostrils working overtime. Something had caught his attention. "What is it, boy?" David scanned the area. Travelers streamed past, dragging roller bags and checking their phones. Everything looked normal. Rex circled once, twice, then sat. His dark eyes locked on David's face. The alert position. David's pulse quickened. Rex only sat like that when he detected something specific. Explosives, weapons, chemical compounds on his trained list. But there were no abandoned bags here, no suspicious packages. Just people moving through their morning routines. "Show me," David said, releasing the lead slightly. Rex stood and moved toward the corridor marked private lounges and VIP services. The area was restricted, requiring special keycard access. David had the credentials but rarely used them. The VIP lounges operated like separate worlds within the airport, insulated from the chaos of the main terminals by thick glass walls and exclusive access points. He swiped his card. The heavy door clicked open. The hallway beyond was carpeted in plush navy blue, the walls decorated with modern art and soft lighting. Classical music played from hidden speakers. David's boots squeaked against the expensive flooring as Rex pulled him forward. The dog's breathing had changed. Faster now. More urgent. His paws clicked rapidly against the floor as he picked up speed, leading David past the Platinum Club entrance, past the Executive Traveler Suite, straight to the largest lounge at the end of the corridor. The Global Elite Lounge. David hesitated. This was the most exclusive space in the entire airport. Politicians flew through here, CEOs, celebrities. The membership fee alone was $20,000 annually. He'd been inside once during a security briefing and had felt out of place the entire time. Rex whined, a low, insistent sound that David had only heard a handful of times. The dog pawed at the frosted glass door. "All right," David muttered. He pushed through the entrance. The lounge stretched before them like something from a luxury hotel. Leather recliners faced floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the runway. A marble bar ran along one wall, stocked with top-shelf liquor and a professional espresso machine. Small private rooms branched off the main area, each with its own door for ultimate privacy. So shut. This early hour, the space was nearly empty. An older gentleman in a suit read the Wall Street Journal in one corner. A young woman typed on a laptop near the windows. Neither looked up as Rex entered. The dog ignored them both. He crossed the lounge in a straight line, his focus absolute, heading toward the private rooms at the back. David followed, acutely aware of how out of place they looked. His uniform felt shabby against the elegant surroundings. His radio crackled with chatter from other security teams, the sound jarringly loud in this quiet sanctuary. Rex stopped at the third door. Unlike the others, this one was closed. A small brass plate read Executive Privacy Suite. The dog's entire body vibrated with tension. He pressed his nose against the door's base, inhaling deeply. Then he sat. Hard alert. David's mouth went dry. Whatever Rex had detected, it was inside that room. Protocol said he should call for backup, get supervisors involved, coordinate with lounge management. But something in Rex's demeanor made him hesitate. The dog wasn't showing aggression or fear. His tail wagged slightly, and he looked up at David with what almost seemed like concern. David knocked. "Airport security. I need to check this room." Silence. He knocked again, louder. "Sir or ma'am, this is Officer Martinez with K9 Security. I need you to open the door." Nothing. Rex whined again. His paw scraped against the carpet. David pulled out his master keycard. Every security officer had access to all airport spaces in case of emergency. His hand shook slightly as he slid the card through the reader. The lock beeped. The door swung inward. The suite was designed for ultimate comfort. A queen-sized daybed sat against one wall, covered in silk pillows. A private bathroom with a shower occupied one corner. A small kitchenette offered a mini fridge and microwave. The lights were dimmed, and at first David thought the room was empty. Then Rex lunged forward. "Rex, heel!" But the dog didn't stop. He crossed to the daybed and nosed aside the pile of decorative pillows. His tail wagged faster now, almost frantic. David's breath caught in his throat. A child lay curled on the bed. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her small body was wedged into the corner where the bed met the wall, partially hidden by the pillows. She wore a pink dress that was torn at the hem and dirty, as if she'd been wearing it for days. Her feet were bare. Tangled blonde hair fell across her face, and her skin was pale, almost gray. She wasn't moving. David rushed forward, his training kicking in. He checked for a pulse, his fingers trembling as they pressed against her small neck. There, faint but steady. She was alive. "This is Officer Martinez in the Global Elite Lounge, Executive Suite 3, he said into his radio, his voice tight. "I need medical assistance immediately. I have an unresponsive child, approximately 7 years old. Pulse present but weak. Dispatch EMS now." The radio erupted with responses. Multiple voices talking over each other, asking for clarification, demanding details. But David's attention was on Rex. The German shepherd hadn't left the child's side. He lay down on the floor next to the bed, his head resting on his paws, his eyes fixed on the little girl's face. When David gently lifted her into his arms, Rex stood immediately, pressing close, as if standing guard. The child's head lolled against David's shoulder. She weighed almost nothing. Her breathing was shallow, her lips slightly blue. How long had she been here? Who had left her in this private suite? And why had no one noticed? The suite door burst open. 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher and medical bags. Behind them came airport security supervisors, their faces grave. Within seconds, the small room filled with people, all shouting questions and orders. "Possible hypothermia," one paramedic said, wrapping the child in thermal blankets. "Body temperature is dangerously low. We need to get her to the hospital now." "How did she get in here?" a supervisor demanded. "These suites require keycard access and reservations." David shook his head. Rex found her. He alerted at the door. "The dog?" The supervisor looked skeptical. "You're telling me your K9 detected a hidden child through a closed door?" He's trained to detect chemical compounds and explosives, David said, but he's also trained in search and rescue. He must have caught her scent. The paramedics lifted the stretcher. The child remained unconscious, her small hand visible beneath the blankets. As they moved toward the door, Rex followed, staying close to the stretcher. "Rex, stay," David commanded. The dog hesitated, looking back at the child, then reluctantly returned to David's side. They wheeled her out through the lounge. The businessman and the woman with the laptop both stared, their exclusive tranquility shattered by the emergency. Within minutes, the suite was cordoned off with yellow tape. Crime scene investigators arrived, photographing everything, dusting for fingerprints. David gave his statement 3 times to 3 different supervisors. Yes, Rex had alerted. No, he hadn't seen anyone suspicious. Yes, the door was locked when they arrived. No, he had no idea how long the child had been inside. By noon, the story had spread through the entire airport. Staff whispered in break rooms. News vans gathered outside the main terminal. Airport management held an emergency meeting. And through it all, Rex stayed close to David, as if sensing that their discovery had changed everything. The investigation moved quickly. Security footage showed a man entering the VIP lounge at 3 a.m., carrying what appeared to be a large duffel bag. He'd used a stolen keycard, accessed the executive suite, and left 20 minutes later without the bag. The cameras captured his face clearly. Within hours, police identified him as Marcus Vance, wanted in 3 states for child abduction and trafficking. The little girl, once she was stabilized at the hospital, told police her name was Emma. She'd been taken from a shopping mall parking lot in Phoenix 4 days earlier. Marcus had kept her drugged and quiet, moving her through airports in luggage and bags, heading toward an international flight. The VIP suite had been a temporary holding spot, a place where he thought no one would look while he finalized his escape plans. But he hadn't counted on Rex. David learned all of this in pieces over the following days. Police briefings, news reports, updates from hospital staff. Emma had been severely dehydrated and malnourished, but she would recover. Her parents were flying in from Phoenix. Marcus Vance had been arrested trying to board a flight in Seattle. 3 days after the rescue, David returned to work for his regular shift. Rex trotted beside him through the familiar terminals, his tail high, his stride confident. Travelers moved around them without a second glance, just another K-9 team doing their job. But as they approached the VIP lounge corridor, Rex slowed. His ears perked forward. David felt tension gather in his shoulders, his hand automatically moving to his radio. Had Rex detected something again? Then the door opened, and a small figure stepped out. Emma. She wore fresh clothes now, jeans and a purple sweater. Her blonde hair was clean and pulled back in a ponytail. Her face had color again, and though she looked thin, her eyes were bright. A woman stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder. Emma's mother, David realized. The resemblance was unmistakable. Rex's tail began to wag, slowly at first, then faster. Emma's face lit up. "That's him," she said, her voice small but clear. "That's the dog." She took a tentative step forward. Her mother started to hold her back, but David nodded. "It's okay. Rex is gentle." Emma crossed the distance and dropped to her knees in front of the German shepherd. For a long moment, they looked at each other. Then Emma threw her arms around Rex's neck and buried her face in his fur. The dog stood perfectly still, allowing the embrace. His tail wagged steadily, thumping against the carpeted floor. "Thank you," Emma whispered into Rex's coat. "Thank you for finding me." David felt his throat tighten. He'd worked with Rex for 3 years, watched him detect dozens of threats, cleared countless scenes. But he'd never seen the dog respond quite like this. Rex gently nuzzled Emma's hair, a gesture of pure tenderness. Emma's mother approached, tears streaming down her face. "Officer Martinez," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't know how to thank you. Both of you. If your dog hadn't found her when he did, if she'd been in that room much longer without food or water or warmth—" She couldn't finish. She didn't need to. Everyone knew how close they'd come to a different ending. "Rex did his job," David said quietly. "He's trained to protect people. He saved my daughter's life." The woman knelt beside Emma, one arm around her child, the other reaching out to rest on Rex's head. "Heroes come in all forms. I'll never forget what he did." Emma pulled back slightly, her small hands still resting on Rex's shoulders. "Can I see him again?" she asked, looking up at David with hope in her eyes. David glanced at his supervisor, who had appeared at the edge of the corridor, watching the reunion. The supervisor nodded. "We're here every Tuesday and Thursday morning," David said. "Terminal 3. If you're ever passing through, look for us." Emma smiled. A real smile, the first David had seen from her. "I'll come back, I promise." Over the following weeks, the story spread beyond the airport. Local news became national news. Rex's photo appeared in newspapers across the country, always with the same caption: "Hero K9 saves abducted child." The airport presented Rex with a special commendation. The German Shepherd Club of America sent a medal. Hundreds of letters arrived from people who'd heard the story and wanted to thank the dog who'd followed his instincts despite the odds. But Rex seemed unbothered by the attention. He continued his daily patrols, checking bags, clearing gates, doing the work he'd been trained to do. To him, finding Emma hadn't been extraordinary. It had simply been his job. David understood. He'd learned early in his career that working dogs didn't seek glory or recognition. They found satisfaction in the work itself, in the bond with their handler, in knowing they'd accomplished their mission. Still, something had shifted between them. When David looked at Rex now, he saw more than just a highly trained K9. He saw a partner who'd proven that sometimes the most important alerts had nothing to do with explosives or weapons. Sometimes, the most critical detection was the scent of a child who desperately needed help. 6 weeks after the rescue, on a Tuesday morning, David and Rex were conducting their usual sweep of Terminal 3 when David spotted a familiar figure near the security checkpoint. Emma stood with her mother, watching the K9 team approach. She clutched a small package wrapped in purple paper. "Officer Martinez?" Emma waved, her face breaking into a grin. David smiled and walked over, Rex trotting beside him. Several travelers stopped to watch, phones coming out to record the moment. By now, many regular airport users recognized Rex, and videos of the famous rescue dog had circulated widely online. "Emma, good to see you. You look healthy." "We're flying to visit my grandma," Emma explained, "but I asked Mom if we could come early so I could see Rex." She held out the package. "I made something for him. Well, my mom helped, but it was my idea." David took the gift and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a hand-sewn dog toy in the shape of an airplane, stuffed with soft filling. Stitched on one side in careful letters was Rex's name. "I wanted him to have something special," Emma said, "to remember that he's the best dog in the whole world." Rex sniffed the toy, his tail wagging. David squeezed it, making it squeak. Rex's ears perked up with interest. "Can he play with it?" Emma asked hopefully. "When we finish our shift," David promised. "Right now he's working, but I know he loves it. Thank you, Emma." The little girl beamed. Then, more seriously, she looked up at David. "I have dreams sometimes," she said quietly, "about being in that room, about being cold and scared. But then I remember Rex finding me, and I feel better. My therapist says that's good. She says Rex is like my guardian angel." David crouched down to Emma's eye level. "You're very brave. And Rex? He has a gift for finding people who need help. I think maybe you were meant to cross paths." Emma nodded solemnly. Then she hugged Rex one more time, whispering something into his ear that only the dog could hear. As they walked away toward their gate, Emma's mother turned back and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." David watched them go, then looked down at Rex. The German Shepherd sat patiently, his dark eyes alert, already scanning for the next potential threat. "Good boy," David said softly, running his hand over Rex's head. "You're one of the good ones." The airport moved around them. Travelers rushed past with luggage and coffee cups. Overhead announcements called out boarding times and gate changes. Life continued in its chaotic rhythm. But David knew that for Emma, and for her family, this airport would always mean something different. Not just a place of stress and schedules, but the location where a remarkable dog had refused to give up, had insisted something was wrong, and had ultimately saved a life. The months that followed brought more attention. Rex was invited to schools to demonstrate canine capabilities. He appeared at fundraisers for child safety organizations. His story was featured in documentaries about working dogs. Through it all, he remained the same steady, focused partner David had always known. But there were small changes. David noticed that when they worked the VIP lounge corridor now, Rex moved with extra care, his nose working overtime as if remembering what he'd found there. And occasionally, when they passed the executive suite where Emma had been hidden, Rex would pause and look at the door, his tail giving a single deliberate wag. Remembering. A year after the rescue, on a cool October morning, David arrived at work to find a message waiting for him. Emma's mother had called. They were planning a special event at their local community center, a fundraiser for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They wanted Rex to be the guest of honor. David cleared it with his supervisors and made arrangements. The following Saturday, he and Rex drove 3 hours to Phoenix. The community center's parking lot was packed. Inside, hundreds of people filled the main hall. A stage had been set up at one end, decorated with blue and yellow ribbons. Photos of missing children covered one wall, a stark reminder of why everyone had gathered. When David walked in with Rex, the room erupted in applause. People stood, clapping and cheering. Rex's tail wagged uncertainly, unused to this kind of attention away from his usual work environment. Emma ran to meet them. She was taller now, her face fuller, healthier. She wore a t-shirt with Rex's photo printed on the front, and she carried a leash of her own, attached to a small brown puppy. "This is Ranger," she announced proudly, holding up the squirming ball of fur. "We adopted him last month. Mom says he's going to be my protector, just like Rex protected me." David smiled. "He looks like he'll do a great job." The ceremony was simple but moving. Emma's mother spoke about the nightmare of those 4 days when Emma was missing, the desperate fear, the hollow terror. Then she talked about the phone call from the hospital, the joy of reunion, the gratitude that overwhelmed every other emotion. "We're the lucky ones," she said, gesturing to the wall of photos. "So many families are still searching, still hoping, still waiting for their own miracle. That's why we're here today, to raise money, to raise awareness, and to celebrate the heroes who work every day to bring children home." She called David and Rex to the stage. The applause returned, thunderous in the enclosed space. "Officer Martinez and his partner Rex represent the very best of what service means," Emma's mother continued. "They weren't looking for recognition or reward. They were simply doing their job. But because they did that job with excellence, with dedication, with an unwillingness to ignore even the smallest alert, my daughter is here today." Emma stepped forward and presented Rex with a new medal, this one designed specifically for him. It hung on a ribbon of gold and featured an engraved image of a German shepherd with the words, "Every child matters," etched below. As David fixed the metal to Rex's collar, Emma hugged the dog one more time. Cameras flashed, people wiped away tears, and Rex, seemingly understanding the gravity of the moment, stood perfectly still, allowing the embrace, his tail wagging gently. Later, as the event wound down, David and Rex sat outside on a bench. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Rex lay at David's feet, the new metal catching the fading light. "You know what the incredible thing is?" David said aloud, knowing Rex couldn't understand the words but needing to say them anyway. "You didn't save just one person that day. You saved Emma's parents from a lifetime of grief. You saved her future family, the children she'll have someday who get to exist because their mother survived. You saved everyone who loves her from that irreplaceable loss." Rex's ear twitched. He looked up at David with those intelligent dark eyes. "1. Alert," David continued. "One moment of trusting your training, your instincts, and everything changed." He thought about all the times Rex had alerted on his shift. Abandoned bags that turned out to be empty, suspicious packages that were just forgotten luggage. False positives were part of the job, expected and accepted. But David had never once dismissed Rex's alerts, never once ignored the dog's insistence that something was wrong. Because of that trust, Emma was alive. The drive back to the airport felt different. David kept glancing in his rearview mirror at Rex, who sat in his special compartment, tongue lolling happily. The metal swung gently with the motion of the vehicle. They returned to their routine: morning shifts, terminal sweeps, security checks. The work of a K-9 team continued in its familiar patterns. But David noticed that other officers treated Rex differently now. They stopped to pet him, to acknowledge his presence. Children pointed him out in the terminals, recognizing him from news stories. Parents used him as an example. "See that dog? He's a hero." Rex took it all in stride, more interested in his work than his reputation. On a Thursday morning, 18 months after finding Emma, David and Rex were conducting their usual VIP lounge check. The Global Elite Lounge had been renovated in the aftermath of the incident. New security cameras, better monitoring, stricter access protocols. The changes had come too late for Emma, but would hopefully protect others. As they walked through the familiar space, Rex suddenly stopped. His ears went forward, his nose lifted. David's heart skipped. "Not again. Please, not again." But Rex's tail was wagging, high and happy, and coming through the door was Emma, now 8 years old, her blonde hair longer, her smile confident. She wore a school uniform and carried a backpack covered in dog patches. "I'm flying to science camp," she announced, "but I told Dad we had to use the VIP lounge so I could see if Rex was here." Behind her, a man David hadn't met before extended his hand. "I'm Tom, Emma's father. I've wanted to meet you and Rex for a long time. I was deployed overseas when everything happened." They shook hands. David saw the emotion in the man's eyes, the unspoken gratitude. "My unit heard about it even in Afghanistan," Tom continued. "My commanding officer came to tell me personally that Emma had been found, that she was safe. I've never felt relief like that in my life. And it was because of your partner." Emma was already on the floor, hugging Rex. The dog's tail created a steady rhythm against the expensive carpet. "I'm going to be a veterinarian when I grow up," Emma said, looking up at David. "So I can help dogs like Rex. He saved me, and I want to save other dogs." David felt something tighten in his chest. One moment of crisis had not just saved a life, but shaped a future. Emma would carry Rex's lesson with her forever. The knowledge that animals could be heroes, that trust and training and instinct could combine to create miracles. They talked for a few more minutes before Emma's flight was called. She gave Rex one last hug, whispered her usual secret message into his ear, and walked away holding her father's hand. David watched them go, then looked down at Rex. The German Shepherd sat calmly, professional as always, ready for the next task. "Come on, partner," David said. "We've got work to do." They walked back into the busy terminal together, just another K9 team among the thousands of travelers and staff who kept the airport running. But David knew the truth. There was nothing ordinary about Rex, nothing common about the bond they shared, or the work they did together. 2 years after the rescue, the airport commissioned a permanent memorial. A bronze statue, life-sized, showing Rex in his alert position outside the VIP lounge. The plaque at its base read, "In honor of K9 Rex, whose dedication and instincts saved a life and reminded us that heroes come in all forms." The unveiling ceremony drew a large crowd: airport staff, local police, TSA agents, news crews, and, of course, Emma and her family. Emma, now 9 years old and thriving, pulled the cloth off the statue. The bronze Rex gazed forward with alert intensity, captured perfectly by the artist. The real Rex sat beside the statue, seemingly unimpressed by his metallic likeness. David had to smile. Leave it to Rex to be more interested in the hot dog vendor on the concourse than his own monument. But when Emma knelt beside him, the living dog and bronze memorial side by side, something magical happened. Rex leaned into Emma's embrace, his head resting against her shoulder, creating a moment so perfect that every photographer present captured it. That photo would appear in newspapers and websites around the world. The girl and the dog who'd found each other in the darkest of circumstances, reunited in celebration and remembrance. For David, the statue meant something deeper. It was a reminder that every shift mattered. Every alert deserved attention. Every moment of trust between handler and dog had the potential to save a life. Years would pass. Rex would eventually retire, living out his remaining years in comfort at David's home. Emma would grow up, attend college, and yes, become a veterinarian as she'd promised. She would volunteer with search and rescue organizations, training new K9 teams, passing on the lesson she'd learned in that VIP suite. That sometimes, when everything seems lost, when hope feels like a distant memory, a dog's nose can detect more than chemicals and compounds. It can detect life itself. It can find the vulnerable and forgotten. It can alert to dangers that humans miss. And sometimes, if we're lucky enough to have partners like Rex, it can change everything. The bronze statue stands in Terminal 3 to this day. Travelers pause to read the plaque, to snap photos, to let their children pet the metal dog. They don't always know the full story, don't always understand what that alert meant, how close Emma came to never being found. But those who do know, those who were there or who lived through it, or who simply understand the importance of trust between species, they stop a little longer. They rest a hand on Rex's bronze head. They remember that heroism isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's as quiet as a dog sitting down in a hallway, refusing to move, insisting without words that something is wrong. And sometimes that quiet insistence saves the world.